Let's explore the internal conflict, because this is where the problem starts. When we tell ourselves things in the form of positive present tense statements, statements about ourselves that we wish were true, but our brain perceives these statements as a lie, we create an internal conflict. To solve this conflict, we can use something called bridging the gap. Bridging the gap is often needed for affirmations to actually stick and work. It is the missing link to start rewiring our neural pathways. This is exactly where many people fall down, and this is why many people give up on using the affirmations altogether. Deep inside our brain sits a network of interconnected regions. This is called the default mode network, or DMN for short. Think of the DMN as our brain's autopilot, or its internal narrator, if you will. Whenever we aren't actively focusing on an external task, like we are daydreaming, brushing our teeth, doing the dishes, or simply just laying in bed, the DMN fires up. Its main job is to process our self-concept. It replays autobiographical memories and it stimulates future scenarios. However, human evolution prioritizes our survival over our happiness. And because of that, a hyperactive DMN easily traps us. It locks us into negative loops, anxiety, and self doubt. So, in this recording, I'm going to share things about our brain's default mode network and how it can trap us in negative loops, and how this makes affirmations feel like a lie. But I'm also going to explain how this can be retrained or rewired to our benefit, because our DMN is just like our ego. It's either a terrible master or a wonderful servant. Let's start with what affirmations are. Affirmations are positive statements, and they serve as a deliberate intervention. They are designed to hijack this autopilot system. At their core, affirmations are present tense positive deliberate statements that we use to challenge and overcome self-sabotaging thoughts. They function as a form of conscious self-talk, if you will. They direct our focus towards our strengths, core values, and desired outcomes, rather than letting our mind run on historical scripting or automatic survival instincts. Practicing affirmations means intentionally choosing the words that define our reality. When we speak or think about our core values and capabilities, we directly activate the exact anatomical hubs of the DMN by intentionally feeding positive narratives into this network. We interrupt the automatic negative loops and we begin to rewire our internal identity. When used effectively, affirmations serve as a psychological steering wheel, if you will. They allow us to actively shape our self-worth and build mental resilience. Now, let's explore the internal conflict, because this is where the problem starts. When we tell ourselves things in the form of positive present tense statements, statements about ourselves that we wish were true, but our brain perceives these statements as a lie, we create an internal conflict. To solve this conflict, we can use something called bridging the gap. Bridging the gap is often needed for affirmations to actually stick and work. It is the missing link to start rewiring our neural pathways. This is exactly where many people fall down, and this is why many people give up on using the affirmations altogether. Now, let's be smart and let's take a look at the neural mechanism behind this. When we practice our affirmations, a fascinating tug of war happens. It takes place across our neural circuitry. Now, neuroimaging studies show that effective affirmations stimulate two main areas of our brain. First, the medial prefrontal cortex, which handles our sense of self, responsible for our self-reflection as well. And second, the ventral striatum. Now, the ventral striatum is responsible for motivation and reward-based learning. Basically, this is the core hub of our brain's dopamine-driven reward system, and that is important. By coupling self-reflection with positive valuation, we tell our brain that these new thoughts are valuable, safe, and true. And over time, neuroplasticity allows these repeated thoughts to change things within. They build physically stronger neural pathways. This makes self-efficacy our new default setting rather than self-criticism and self-sabotage. Also, this DMN reward loop acts as an emotional buffer. When our core identity is reinforced from within, threat detection regions change and they become significantly less reactive to external stressors, criticism, or failure. So, why traditional affirmations fail us? It comes down to the DMN's error detector, basically. Traditional affirmations often backfire. If our DMN is playing a default loop of I am a failure, and we force ourselves to chant I am incredibly successful, our brain immediately fact checks this claim. It measures it against its stored memories. When it finds no physical evidence to back it all up, the brain flags the affirmation as a lie. And this triggers a threat response. And this causes anxiety. And it actually reinforces the original negative belief. To change our brain, we cannot lie to it. We have to negotiate with it. So this is how we negotiate with our DMN. The bridging the gap formula solves this error detection problem. Instead of forcing our brain to make an impossible leap, moving from a toxic belief to an unbelievable fantasy, this exercise or this kind of wording helps us build a psychological bridge. By using realistic, process-oriented language, we bypass the amygdala's threat alarm entirely. The brain accepts the statement as logically plausible, and this allows the DMN to safely simulate a positive future scenario. And this is what we want. It does it without rejecting it. It transforms affirmations from a battle of willpower into a cooperative exercise of neuroplasticity. Now, let's learn the universal bridging the gap formula, okay? To build an effective bridge affirmation, we have to use a three-part formula, and this is how it works. Acknowledgement of reality, plus a neuro-opener, plus a growth action. I'll explain this. So let's break it down. First, acknowledgement of reality. We start by validating our current feelings. This calms the brain's internal truth checker. Why? Because we are admitting what is true right now. For example, even though I feel completely overwhelmed by this project. So the main statement you have to remember really is even though. Second, the neuro-opener. We introduce flexibility into our mindset. This phrase avoids absolute claims and opens the door to potential. For example, I am entirely capable of learning how to manage these tasks. And third, the growth action. We finish it with a realistic, process-focused step. This gives the DMN concrete action to simulate. and that's important. It rewards our brain for effort rather than immediate perfection. For example, one step at a time today. And when we put all of this together, it sounds something like this. Even though I feel completely overwhelmed by this project, I am entirely capable of learning how to manage these tasks one step at a time today. This is how we bridge the gap. Instead of forcing things and trying to sell an unbelievable fantasy to ourselves, like I'm incredibly successful at everything I do, we use a bridging statement as our affirmation to feel safe. And now, last but not least, let me relate this back to manifestation. In the manifestation process, which I talked about in the previous recording, this neurocognitive alignment is essential. Our brain cannot actively attract, notice, or move towards a new reality if our default mode network consistently flags it as a threat and checks it as a lie. Traditional manifestation protocols are quite problematic because they tell us to change our vibe and act as if or fake it till you make it, but they don't work. If our subconscious narrator is firing alarms constantly because of these statements, our nervous system stays locked in a state of high stress resistance. And we don't want that. By using the bridging formula, we clear the psychological blocks, the emotional blocks, the blocks that cause us to self-sabotage. We are training our DMN to safely simulate our desired future. We view it as a plausible, achievable reality rather than an impossible fantasy. This rewiring shifts us out of a passive wanting mindset and it moves us into an active state of high neuroplasticity supported readiness. It allows our reward center to flag new opportunities, to spot new resources, and to drive the inspired action that is necessary to turn our intentions into physical reality. Now, with all that said, I'll end this recording. I hope you can use this to your benefit when working with affirmations. And remember that this kind of bridging is only needed if we are working towards something completely new that is very different from our current belief system or reality. Sometimes simple present tense statements work wonderfully. So, I suggest that you pay attention to how each affirmation feels. That is often a good indicator. And if needed, simply build a bridge. Believe me, it works wonders. And I'll leave you with all of this for now. Have a wonderful week, and I'll see you next time.